Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, I think it's working. So panel from Supernatural unfortunately is not able to be here, but we are so fortunate to have the special guest, Lucas Martel, founder of Mighty Coconut, to be here. And he has a tremendous wealth of knowledge, so I'm sure that you're all very excited to hear from him. So I'm Liz. I'm a software engineer at Mighty Coconut. Here's Inga, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Inga, the founder and CEO of ShapesXR. We released our app on MetaQuest Store back in 2021. The store was a whole different story compared to how it looks and feels today. Even subscription were just, very, very new thing to have. Shapes is available for free, but we also have subscriptions, and I'm happy to share all the lessons we learned, how to engage your community of beta testers, how to succeed on MetaQuest Store, what monetization strategies exist, and specifically given that we are the platform that allows game developers to do game level design and prototype user journey and try different, locomotion techniques, and some of the best, most popular titles on MetaQuest Store use our platform to design their apps. I'm happy to share, also accumulated learning from working with those gaming studios, some of them biggest gaming studios, how to make sure that your app feels right and has great retention on store and, allows you to monetize and create revenue.
Hi, I'm Ethan. I've been building XR apps for about 7 years. 3 years ago, I started co-founded a studio, tech toy studio. Last year, we launched a title, Symphoni. It's like a mixed reality rhythm game inspired by music conducting and magical wizardry, making you embody kind of put yourself in the shoes as a music conductor and a wizard. It's out in the store right now. We launched last March, and it's out for the MetaQuest and Pico.
Awesome. And I'm Lucas Martel. I'm the creator of Walkabout Mini Golf. I was actually on a panel just a little bit ago, so I'll keep this really short. But yeah, it started off as a solo project. My background was actually in animation and visual effects. It was kind of a little COVID project that, just was a solo project. And since then, it kind of took off and got a life of its own and grown and grown to what it is now. So yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for squeezing me in.
Can we have a show of hands? How many of you are in XR development right now? Oh, wow, okay. Are you guys interested to learn more of the entrepreneurial side of the story of how to build a successful app? Yes, I see some nodding. Are you here as a fan because you have tried those apps before? Okay, I see some nodding as well. All right. So I guess we could gear towards the side of the types of tips and lessons that those founders have learned through their successful launching of their apps. Do you guys want to share your biggest lesson so far?
Yeah, so happy to see so many XR developers here, interested to learn how to make money in XR and a great, beautiful game. So I started in XR too early, definitely ahead of the market back in 2017. And, we've been through some sort of pivot. And even though ShapesXR is not a gaming app, it's a productivity platform like design and prototyping platform. Still, we are available as free title on MetaQuest Store, and we had to fight for attention and visibility and stuff like that. But our clients are gaming studios, including gaming studios, not just enterprise. That's why we've learned something. I believe the biggest lesson I learned is, number one, you can start engaging your community for your title, as soon as you have minimal viable prototype, and iterate like crazy and start creating videos for TikTok or YouTube, to start keep, building that community. That's the whole success story behind, titles like Gorilla Tag or Ips, they already had 1 million followers, before even, having something available. So that's super, super important that you start building your community. With Shapes, actually, that the whole pitch that we usually do for that you can build a viable interactive prototype and start bringing your testers and beta testers in a shared space and see what works, what doesn't work, what feels delightful, what is the hook for your game, and then start thinking about monetization immediately, right? I believe that probably the most successful thing that works right now, and not just works from a monetization perspective, but what investors still are eager to invest in, is free to play. Because this is there are, I believe, 10 titles that make more than 100 million ARR in free-to-play, and then 100 titles that make more than probably 10 million ARR. I'm not sure about this exact data, but I remember, some slides from Meta. But, again, deciding what exactly is going to be your monetization, what people are going to pay for and how fast this is going to happen is still crucial to identify early on, even before you start doing tech art and where you put your resource, right? Another lesson is too polished is too bad for VR. That's a hard lesson that gaming companies been learning, The audience of teenagers from 12 to 16 that actually own those, for example, Quest headsets today in gaming, they do not expect to see super polished, tech art and stuff. And a lot of my friends, the founders of gaming studios who've been building their games for 2 to 3 years before launching on store and polishing everything and investing a lot in tech art and how things look, those people don't care about it. Absolutely not. So everything can look so bad and so ugly that, and they only look at mechanics and how, what they can do and how they can hang out with their friends and how they can, mess around with different people. And I know a lot of titles that were not successful on store and they burned all their money just trying to polish things too early before identifying, again, what people are going to pay for. Yeah, so again, engage your community, start posting video reels on TikTok, as soon as possible, whatever, you have something, integrate those cameras that allows you to take in-app footage. So that's, again, something that you can convert into gold, leaf or anything else you can come with, that's crucial. Content is your everything, basically. And then even after you launch, you can still iterate like crazy, super, super fast, by bringing people in and watching them, how they play, what the main hook is. And probably another advice that actually helped me a lot when I started to make Shapes visible, to help us, get early clients, including those gaming studios, is our XR community is still so small. And so you might think, founder of Yips is the guy who already made probably 50 million in revenue. He will never reply to me. But this is a super young guy, a very nice guy, and super, super responsive. Just send him an email, and most likely he wants to support you, and he will reply. Same with Chris from the founder of Gorilla Tag. He now has a big team, but he himself is still super passionate and very, very obsessed about games. And even that's why he made the whole Locomotion system of Gorilla Tag open source. And when I asked him, why did you open source it? And he's like, I want to see more cool games out there. I don't want also users to relearn every time they jump into the app, relearn how to move. No, let's have some kind of standard here, how people move, Definitely Gorilla Tag movement is not for every gameplay, but it's reused by so many companies, and so many still succeeded, by just adopting that. So reach out to those people, reach out to the founders that already have their apps on store, Eden and Lucas, and they most likely they're gonna reply to you and share their piece of advice. Because the founder of Yips, he was so generous. He even shared all the tricks he learned from Gorilla Tag, but also all his own tricks, how to make money on store, that I think was even too generous, But the market is so small, we don't care that much about competition. We just want it to grow and more people get headsets and start playing so that the pie is so big that it's enough for everyone, actually. I stop here, but probably you have more questions, but Eden,
Yeah.
don't forget to mention that you like Shapes and you use it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, piggybacking off what Inga is saying, I think building a community is very, very important. We had to really exhaustively test early on. Play tests are very, very important, especially for a game like Symphoni. Yeah, early on we had many play tests, and we were very exhaustive with the amount of play tests we did every week. Every week we had about like 3 to 5 play tests, and every time we had a play test, we kind of learned something new. And going into a medium like VR, I think you're going to run into a lot of difficult challenges that you kind of face very early on, and you're just going to get a sense of that if you get very early prototypes. And using Shapes, of course, you can prototype very quickly. You can kind of get a sense of what people are able to interact with and engage with well. One of the biggest challenges we faced early on was getting a sense of what people can instinctually understand. So for a game like Symphoni, I think what makes it so successful is it's very simple. The type of interactions that you need are you just swing in different directions. We have a few visuals for you to like kind of engage with, and you can kind of just go into it without knowing much about the game and still be able to like take away a lot. And I think that's what makes our game pretty successful in that regard. So I think it's very important, again, to build a community, get tests early on, validate your idea, and yeah, I think.
I wish I had known a lot of those things that you both mentioned. I would say that probably maybe the biggest lesson I learned was just keep doing it and keep failing until you get lucky. I wish that I had really sort of like that I had known a lot of the like monetization and so many of those things kind of beforehand. But I had a couple of games that I made before Walkabout that were really good, but absolute commercial failures. And I was in the film industry for a long time. I have so many scripts that just never saw the light of day. But there is something that happens when you keep doing stuff. And I think that one of the specific things that sort of made Walkabout was that I had done another game called Laser Mazer, where you actually physically walk around in the real world, but it's all through a phone. This was before like standalone VR existed. And people felt it was super. It actually won one of the Indicate Awards. It was a really cool game, but mobile just didn't sort of like have the monetization model that we were kind of aiming for, which was premium. So, but by doing that, we also learned sort of like that maybe make it so that people don't have to be quite as physical. That they're able to play it in a way that they don't necessarily have to have as large of a space. That they don't have to, quite take on. They felt a little silly maybe doing the full things. By the way, Laser Dance, I don't believe that he's here, but that one is awesome. It's like the VR version of kind of what that game was, if anyone knows that one. But the lesson from that was just sort of like we took that, and then Walkabout was sort of a direct response to that. Like, let's make something a little bit more accessible, still using a lot of the same techniques and a lot of the technology that we had developed for that Laser Mazer game, and then find something new. So if something fails, iterate on it, learn the lesson, and sort of keep building, because it takes a lot of time, and especially I would say that we were just very lucky that the timing of it happened when it did, because had an app that happened to launch like 2 weeks before the Quest 2 came out, social game at the height of the pandemic. So I'd like to say that, yes, we're so great, we just planned all of that, but no, the reality is it was more timing that I think was lucky than anything else.
I mean, I would double down on that. So that because we didn't have any playbooks back in 2017, 18, and 19, it was just Beat Saber. That was like, okay, why? But they also built a bunch of games before the Beat Saber success. But now my point is that we do have playbooks for successful free-to-play games, and we saw how like at least 5 titles immediately after Guerrilla Tag repeated that playbook so closely and still were super successful. So that's why I encourage really to not to ignore that and to speak to those founders and game developers. They're still pretty indie, so some of them are still like 3 people team, even though generate tens and sometimes millions of dollars. If you're building a free-to-play game, so there is a playbook today that can be, if not replicated, but at least considered, and it's great, because for so long we've been just like keep iterating and just trying to get luck. Yeah, so if you want to make a picture of us, probably you do it from another great game that everyone should stop by, and this is like an incredible indie developer. I'm talking to you. Yeah, so I mean, just don't ignore that. It can be like super helpful for you to just, speed up so that you probably even succeed from the first title. And you don't have to release like 10 of them, like Beat Saber, before actually getting to Beat Saber right now. So that's the point.
So I have to say that Lucas is very, very humble because he knows every aspect of the app, from tech, from art, from animation, from
Shame with
modeling.
It's because I built it all and then you all had to fix it. That's why.
And also, he pays a lot of attention to details, and also he tries to like put things in the way that's the most kind of user friendly. I think it takes say a good amount of time to build something great, but it takes just 20% more time to build something excellent. So I think the amount of time and details that he put into every aspect of the app kind of calls for the high quality experience that users have. Yeah.
I would actually maybe even say something, because I know one of the things that you had mentioned is sort of like that, yes, you don't need to polish everything, but I do think it's really important to pick like what is the thing that is super important. Yes, the visuals don't have to be amazing, but something about the interaction has to be amazing. Maybe you want to say more on that.
Yeah, about interaction. So no, exactly. So my point was mostly about this tech art polishing, that every model looks like stunning. And I just know when founders, they fundraised for their game, and then all their runway went on just hiring tech artists and just polishing forever those assets that people are going to spend money for. And like, why would you do that? So this whole generation on Roblox, they don't care about how things look. The games my daughter plays is like the ugliest thing you can think about. I would never tolerate. I was like, it's so bad, but this is what they like. And if it's too polished, then they just think that it's for adults or but we have to remember that the headsets today are not with adults who play. It's a very, very tiny niche. The headsets today are with 14-year-olds and 12-year-olds. So, and that's why we focus on them. And it has to be like Roblox, but I agree that there is something has to be polished, and something that has to be polished is that as soon as I immerse into the game, I immediately can figure out how to get started, right? And funny enough, when I ran like some early user tests for Gorilla Tag, I invited, probably 10 fourth graders, put them in Quest 3, the classmates of my daughter, and they immediately figure out how to move in Gorilla Tag. If you ask me, it took me probably a couple of, I couldn't move from the first second. So to find your target audience that you want to try and iterate, and exactly with that audience, not with your team members, not with your parents, not with whoever, is actually your potential players of the same age and the same user portrait. So yes, in Shapes, the whole idea is that we really encourage game developers that when you have your game levels, and you have some basic interactions and major kind of mechanics of the game, just iterate like crazy, because that has to be the goal. So for Gorilla Tag, they unlock their goal, that this is and that's thing, and that there is no UI, right? So the UI is actually everything around you. So that has to be polished. So your identity as a game and how quickly people can start playing, ideally immediately they should start playing without figuring things out. They like from the first second, but also monetization. So that's something that you also have to figure out what they will be willing to pay for. But from again visuals perspective, I think there is so much tolerance from this community of headsets owners. I would not, I saw some really ugly looking games, but they were so much fun. And they were much more successful than games from my peer founders who I respect a lot and put so much effort. And the game looks stunning on Quest. So they actually pushed all the limits of this damn mobile device, but it just didn't pay off at all. So that's the point.
I want to second that also. I think it's very, very important to kind of hone in on one thing that your game is very good at, I think. I think we made the mistake early on as a studio. We kind of had so many different ideas, different directions, different game mechanics that we wanted to put in the game. And we kind of eventually came to realize that really the user, when we did our playtest, like every week, we kind of felt that there was one main mechanic that players would always come back to, and that was just the basic mechanic of like swinging different directions as a conductor. And I feel like once you get that one mechanic that really works, you can kind of reuse it and really polish that one thing. And I think that's what kind of brings your idea forth then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lucas. And then I will just lose this thought, and I just want to share. So some of my investors who still invest in VR gaming, so not all of them still do that. A lot of them pivoted towards AI. But those who still do invest, I ask, like, what type of games would you invest? Is it just free-to-play or stuff? So most of them are looking for founders who can build arcade of games. So that you already have ideas for like 3 to 5 titles. And they want to invest in it because right now with all these tools and with all those kind of additional capabilities with AI and just, I mean, how the whole store ecosystem works. So one title by your company helps you to sell another title and another title. So this is how like store operates. So basically they're willing to invest if you can show them, okay, this is the game I launched right now, but I already have this and that title that you reuse a lot of what you've built for the first one, but it's slightly different visuals or slightly different, kind of gameplay or slightly different something, but how you can actually have the roadmap for 10 titles with the same efforts, with the same team, they're super willing to invest in that, including like tier 1 investors, because this is like the future of gaming, they think, those arcades that the small team that can build a sequence of games, replicating, some of the core things, but still iterating on like what brings fun to people.
So it's almost like taking one game mechanic and rebranding it for different audiences. Catering
yes,
to
that can be one thing, but it can be also different game mechanics, but you still reuse something that you've learned. I mean, not that much. I'm not talking about even like cross-platform now. It's actually pretty scary for them to invest, we will build VR game, but we will also build a mobile game. These are whole two different worlds from skills and how you be visible on mobile. And if you're a great VR developer, it doesn't mean that you're a great mobile. If you're a great mobile, you might know nothing about. So they don't like this cross-platform that much because a lot of us try to become diversified. A lot of titles now also available on mobile, not super successfully, not successfully at all. But what they want to see that if you're a VR founder that is building VR or mixed reality games, you have an ideas for 5 more games that you can build with the same team as soon as you launch that one. You probably polish that one, but like they want to see arcades,
Yeah, good point.
I would also just second that, the mobile thing. So we actually had done a mobile version, pocket edition of Walkabout Mini Golf. We actually ended up taking that off the store not too long ago because of the difficulty and the expense of keeping that up. Liz was actually the one who led the effort on that, so sorry.
Yes, that was my baby, but unfortunately, so I think it's a good thing that because of VR design and how you interact in VR is so different from mobile, from 2D, is so different from being in 3D, that we had to prioritize and pick and choose one over another. So we couldn't be great at both. We could only be great at one, and we had to pick VR.
And it's also the other way around, right? So Roblox is super successful, but when they came to VR, it was like such a shame, like almost zero traction, and people who are obsessed with Roblox and they still have headsets, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so bad, because they actually ignored all the spatial aspects of a VR game. You're motion sick from step 1, and it's like such a bad experience overall. They never put enough effort, even though they did put quite some effort. And this is the opposite way also works. So super successful, title, I don't want to name it, on MetaQuest store. They tried to come mobiles, put a lot of resources, but it's just like they're invisible there. And it's just like yet another title. So, but I think it's actually pretty cool to be like VR game founder right now, because it's still not crowded. It's still not crowded. You still can be visible, but teenagers still get those headsets for Christmas. So there is enough audience. I mean, and some of them playing Guerrilla Tag day and night. They're looking and thirsty for new games to come there with their crowd and, and immerse in a new game. So I would stick to that. If you're building for VR, definitely don't try to do mobile as well. Oh, no.
Also, I want to add that I do believe that VR is going to be the future, because if you take a look at what teenagers, 13-year-olds are playing right now, they're playing in VR headsets, and they are the future. So in 10 years, it's going to be our time. So, so do you guys want to come up and ask some questions? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, if you have questions, I saw your hand first. So.
Thanks, guys. Really good listening to you guys. I've met you once before, just a couple days ago. So there's a couple of questions that I have. One of which is about the free-to-play. You keep saying there's this great playbook that everybody follows if they just follow it, and I'm like, where's that playbook? Is that something written down? What is the free-to-play? Because at some point you want to monetize it, right? So if you give this free, how do you ultimately turn it into money?
Oh, because they actually become addicted to your game within the first week, and they start spending money like crazy on upgrading their skin and all those things. And they actually, you have to figure out what they're gonna spend. So free to play means that you have the free version available, and this is good enough to actually start playing, bring your friends in, and then start getting crazy. But then in order to win, you have to, start spending money. There is no playbook like a PDF that I can send you, right? When I say playbook is that, Christopher and, the Ips founder, all of them just, they gave quite some interviews, and then they're super accessible. Just reach out and talk to them if I'm a game developer founder, and you should play those games. I mean, that's step number one. You should go and play those games that generate more than 10 million in ARR and play and learn from them. And I mean, a lot of them have some open source, like again, Guerrilla Tech, open source their movement, so you can just immediately get the whole kind of thing and then add your source on top of that, bring some, beta tester. So it's not a PDF, but by playbook, I mean that it's repeatable success. Like Beat Saber for a long time was the only one that we had on the entire market that made some real money. But now after Guerrilla Tech, it's been repeated by several titles. I mean, even the founders I respect a lot that, we're building Spatial, which is they did enterprise meetings in VR. And then they did NFT, all the crazy things, And then they built Animal World, right? So just talking to the Guerrilla Tech founder for 2 hours, interviewing him back and forth, and then building what they built that actually is the same, but not the same, of course, but they reused a lot. So that's what I mean by playbook.
Okay, so one of the things that I did is all that stuff you're talking about the proper order to do things in, like build up your community and start with a prototype and all that. I did it the wrong way, and I did it the opposite way. I started, I think you said your mini golf started as a COVID project? Okay, so when we had the lockdown, I just started, I'm a software person, and I also love games, so I just started creating games for fun. I did it just for the love of it, and I've actually created 5 games that are production ready just for the love of it. And we just started a business because we're like, well, we've got these 5 games, so we didn't really look for a market, we didn't do any of that stuff. Now, I've done some play testing, and I've gotten probably a lot more limited than what you guys have done. And I've gotten generally good feedback, and when I haven't, I've fixed things and I've iterated. So, what do you do when you actually have these games and now you're trying to figure out what to do with them?
You have to promote them even before you have the final. I mean, again, the success behind Guerrilla Tech was millions of followers on TikTok much before they launched on store. So it's the distribution, but distribution means that you are not just on Quest Store. It's distribution from platform perspective, but distribution meaning how you access your community. So they were building their TikTok community while before launching on store. So when they launched, it immediately the network effect happened because they started to stream immediately, and that just became wild. So, and I don't know if you were doing that or not. So, but that was. Yeah. Makes it successful.
Oh, no, finish your sentence there. No, I finished. Oh, I was just going to add too that yes, you do need to have sort of your monetization model figured out, but the biggest problem that every game dev is facing right now is visibility. There is so much stuff out there. 100%. And so whatever that is, if it's wish lists on Steam, if it's that you've got, content creators that are working within your app, whatever that is, you kind of need to have that as sort of you really, really have to have whatever that visibility thing kind of figured out. And if it's something that is going to go viral, one of the ones, I forget his name now, but Sock Puppet Superstar was a really good example of one that's come out recently, and it's sort of like these viral clips of the sock puppet. But like the game's not out yet, but he has over 1 million views on just one of those videos. So things like that is kind of become very necessary, that unless you're going to throw a whole lot of money at marketing, which doesn't really work that well
Still
anymore.
might not help.
Yeah, it might not help. So visibility is probably the biggest thing for any dev to overcome. And sometimes you can get lucky, but there are ways of trying to overcome that through concerted effort. Oh, the question is basically, should you almost pretend that you haven't released the game and sort of put it out there again to sort of get another view? Yeah.
It's never too late. I think you can start. I think it's important to grow as early as you can. Yeah, I think it's important to start as early as you can. So if you already have like a set of games, I think you can kind of start posting updates or finding your community and then growing it as soon as possible. Yeah.
Probably you, at some point, you have more content creators and streamers than developers. It used to be the other way, like to have a really good game, you would hire an army of developers. Today, probably you have a tiny team of developers and QA, like outsourcing something to AI, but like a small team, but then you still need those people, like sometimes influencers or just people on TikTok. And I mean, I've heard that it's super successful even like with people who have very few followers on TikTok and YouTube. It's still working, but you have a bunch of them. You reach out to them and just, you know, have some partnership. And you can be so creative. Sometimes people don't even put any money. I've heard crazy ways how people collaborate on like content streaming and stuff like that. Even some, you know, shares. It's like crazy. Some shares in the company and stuff for future success sharing. But content is everything. You just
Content
pick
is
your platform,
marketing.
TikTok or YouTube. But yeah.
I think there's a few ways to go about it. I think especially for games, what we did was we primarily leveraged our Discord server as a way to get like people like updates on our game. We had kind of like a devlog, and we had like playtest channels and stuff. We kind of used that Discord server as a way to get people to try out new features of the game, like beta tests, stuff like that. And then we kind of funneled them in through different ways. So we kind of used Reddit as one. We went through like similar channels, like the Quest channel, game dev channels, and we posted on our game. We posted on social media, so we had TikTok, Instagram, that kind of thing, and we kind of linked that to our Discord server and use that as kind of our community growth mechanism, I guess. I think a lot of games do this. You can probably see many examples on.
Just really quick too, I would also say for us, it was less about any like TikTok or anything like that. It's not the videos, it's the social. You talked about the network effect. It's somebody gets a headset and they're having fun playing with one friend and their other friend feels left out. So just that network effect of other people wanting to join makes a big difference, but there's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah, this definitely applies to a lot more social, like multiplayer games like Walkabout. But for us, since our game was primarily single player, it was a lot harder to do that kind of social network effect. So for us, we kind of had to finding our audience individually from like social media and such.
Yeah, but take care of like this in-game footage recording and streaming. You know, there are like tools that help you do that. So it still should look like, you know, appealing when you just watch it on a 2D screen, right? We know how awesome things are in VR, and sometimes people just say, oh, okay, like why would I, you know, integrate with some tools? No, but the streaming out of the game in VR, like in a nice, you know, quality that makes people excited is important. So Leaf is one way. You might have your own thing too, but you know, in-game footage. Recording is super important as well, you know, and then you have those, you know, short clips that you post everywhere. Yeah.
Got a question over here?
Hi, first of all, nice to meet you all. My name's Nicholas Bauhaus. I love what you do. So I've been thinking this whole time about, you know, we've got so many games coming out, and you touched a bit on this about, you know, quantity is what investors are looking for. That's the signal. But for most of gaming history, it was more about quality, right? I'd say maybe, you know, 7 years ago or so, we kind of had this huge turnaround, right, where it became about quantity over quality. Take Roblox, for example. But I don't think any of us really think that Roblox or TikTok doom scrolling or, you know, skibbity toilet brain riz is actually good for humanity, right? So my question is, can you give some reasons why you think we're straying away from, great quality games like GTA and, like visually great, good storytelling, good visuals, everything, why we're straying away, and maybe how we can find a happy medium in the future that appeases both this, attention problem we have with younger generations, while also providing an amazing experience.
I would say that there's always two sides of it. I have a general rule that whenever you wonder why something is the way it is, the answer is always money. Also, if you're ever wondering why something tastes good, it's always butter. There's a couple others, but I'll stop there. But the money factor is a big part of it. And so a lot of studios that are owned by investors, they have to be sort of going for that. It's sort of like art as commerce. It's a really dangerous sort of like combination. That also doesn't mean, though, that just because free-to-play or these certain types of games or these certain types of monetization models do well, that doesn't mean that that's the only thing. It's just that there is sort of certain areas that people have proven to have more success. At the same time, there's also, if you are a smaller developer, especially a solo dev or an indie, often it can be more beneficial to steer away from where everyone else is going, because if everyone else is going there, that means that there's these niches that are underserved. You don't have to make $1 million if you're a solo dev to just cover your costs. It's if you make some money, that might be more than enough. So also it kind of, I think that some of these, some of what we're saying probably depends a little bit too on what you are and what your goals are, because there's nothing wrong with actually aiming for that smaller niche. Actually, ironically, something that you said way back in the day was like, oh yeah, don't use your parents. So my parents were the beta testers for Walkabout, but it was during COVID, and it was during the Quest 1 days. There were hardly any Quest 1s out there, so that was like the only way that I had to do it. I think that's actually why Walkabout has gone to a much older demographic, and it's also one of the big reasons that we really, really try to polish the experience and the UI, UX of it all, is because my mom, who hates technology, had to be able to put on a VR headset and play it, and we just kind of stuck with that. So that's a niche. Aim for my mom. Oh, I wish I hadn't said that.
I'm still shocked even how much what I like differs from what my daughters like, and 11 and 17-year-old. But anyway, so it's awful. I mean, it's like what I think is beautiful and artistic and incredible, they just wouldn't spend a second on that. And I've heard recently that there is a huge movement right now for the whole new, because these kids are not able to watch 2 hours movies anymore. In Japan, that happens already, and they have a huge market of this 1-minute drama. Right, and like all like famous directors now go and do those 1-minute drama, invest a lot of money. I hear that people here start doing this 1-minute drama. Like, who cares about 1-minute drama? And I was like, but then I saw a couple of pieces and like, okay, probably it makes sense when you just scroll your, thread. I mean, I would never want to live in this world, right? I want still movies of even 2.5 hours, and that's good for me. I can still immerse and really watch that. But if we are talking about, VR today and who owns the headsets and who actually has their parents' card, connected to the headset, and who's going to spend money, and you can just, accept it or build an incredible game for Steam, tethered headset, and I will be your audience. I still play Steam games, I need real, art and tech art, and I would definitely pick that one. I mean, it's very, very few titles on MetaQuest Store that I like, actually, and I'm crazy about polishing everything, even in Shapes, I mean, like, to be super delightful, like, and whatever we can afford on this mobile device. It's actually not that much performance-wise. I mean, whatever polished and you have some beautiful shaders already crashes your performance significantly. So, I mean, just pick what is your passion. Because if you're like some people say, oh, why don't you do this, for example, like in Shapes? Because I'm not interested. It's not like challenging or interesting to me. Let other people do that. But I'm interested in like building the platform that would allow people to have the storytelling. And the whole idea of that building Tvori before ShapesXR, that was real-time animation thing. I thought that I want to push kids from just pure content consumption to creation. Like, anyone can tell a story, anyone can animate a 3D feature movie in, let's say, minutes, and then face the reality that there is no market for that. So, right, sometimes you still need to put effort to just learn your lesson yourself that there is no demand for something today. So, but that's okay. I mean, whatever drives you and gives you energy, you should build for that. But just learn about Quest audience who have headsets today, and you will be shocked about the people, because a lot of headsets are in dust, like no one touched them, but those that are active daily, this is your audience, right? And those are teenagers with a
Yeah.
clip memory.
I think we definitely learned, my studio learned this the hard way. We definitely went more on the quality route. We wanted to really polish out Symphony to be kind of the way it is now. I think if you do that, you kind of have to accept that the type of audience that you're going to get is probably going to be more niche than you might expect. I think with a lot of success that you see with the free-to-play games today, they go way more on social engagement, quantity over quality, to some extent at least. Yeah, you look at Gorilla Tag, I played like Animal Company, they find ways to kind of make people collaborate, or work together. They have that social engagement aspect that really wants you to come back to again and again. And social is really good on many metrics, including like retention. That's what makes these games so successful today, I think, is that idea of social engagement leads retention, that these kids will come back to it after not just put on the headset, they're going to come back to it the next day, that kind of thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, sorry. I think there is a question.
Oh yeah. So also I want to say that because VR is still in the timeline of increasing computing power, so the definition of the kind of visuals that's being able to be held in the device is going to kind of improve in the future. Just like how 20 years ago, all the 2D video games have changed from like pixelated 2D games to now to 4K type of game. So I feel like for VR, eventually that we're going to have the computing power to be able to support that type of game. But for now, at this timeline, kind of in history, that we have to build utilizing the capabilities of the current technology. So right now we have to balance between performance and also high fidelity visuals. So I feel like in order to build the best game, we have to truly use the portion of VR that can be experienced only in VR, but not in a 2D game. So like being in the 3D space, or kind of going through the space with your arms and head. So we have to kind of adapt to the limitations of the tech right now. Yeah, just want to.
We got one more question back here.
Hi. So yeah, I mean, I kind of relate to, I think, what you were saying about, like, headsets collecting dust, and but I think a part of that has to do with the fact that there are so many developers catering towards younger audiences with their parents' credit card attached, and like these low quality games on the platform. It doesn't really appeal to older, more sophisticated audiences or people with legacy gaming skill, like coming from PC or console. So I think like maybe as developers, maybe raising that bar a bit might appeal to our older audiences and bring more other more healthier revenue to the platform. I just wanted to know what your opinion was on that.
I would say that as a developer, it's very difficult for any individual to really move the needle. We're really reliant on what the storefront. So I think that what you're probably talking about, a big part of that was the push for like Horizon Worlds, and the fact that that was front and centered, and that became what everyone thought. It sort of buried a lot of those. There are still a decent number of more polished things. You just haven't really been seeing them. I think that that will also change. It's like, especially something like Steam Frame is going to cater to more of an audience that's going to want content like that. So hopefully we'll be starting to see more of that. But as individual developers, it's sort of like we're kind of navigating whatever the river throws at us, I would say. And it's difficult for us to sort of, to say like, oh, we want to go over here when there's no water over there. So that's a bad metaphor, but I'll stick with it.
I agree with that. So, I mean, you can experiment, but you might really fight unfair game, I would say here. And again, Quest and pick like the mobile headsets, they can only afford you some level of sophistication in tech art and everything. So if you really want to build like AAA kind of game, just focus on the Steam audience and this completely different age and completely different audience, very grateful audience for some beautiful titles. But if you run any test on Quest and ask kids, how you feel about it, they don't care really. Like you ask, oh, look, it's incredible, like, assets and stuff. They don't see that. They just want to grab something and start, do things around. So we want to raise the bar, but we are not only limited by this audience, we're also limited by how the headsets perform today overall and what people expect. So I think that on Quest and big audience for gaming today, the biggest thing is gameplay itself. How fast I can start playing the game, how delightful is going from one level to another level, and if I have fun with my friends. So like multiplayer is still like the crucial and super important. And think about your monetization. Don't try to fight this unfair, battle of trying to rate the bar of how things look, I believe. And again, yes, as Horizon Worlds, there are like they put so much money into individual developers in like really solid game studios to build games for Horizon Worlds. And some of the worlds and games are very polished, but no one really cared that much about it.
All right. Do you all have any closing thoughts that you anything you want to share?
I mean, keep building, and again, like connect with other, peer XR game developers and founders. They are responsive. I'm saying firsthand. I mean, they help you to build your own playbook. They are eager to share their experience. We need more titles. Reach out to strategics. I mean, Meta and Picker. Get their support before launch for sure. I mean, they have people dedicated to work with you and help you launch successfully, be visible, like from marketing perspective. Sometimes they even have funding. So just like prepare for the launch and then so that would be helpful.
Yeah, start validating ideas early on. I think you got to think about audience first before you kind of start building it like full-fledged products. I think once you start rapidly iterating, I think you can kind of get a sense of what works and what doesn't, and I think that's very important.
Show your game to my mom. Mic drop? I don't know.
Will she pay for like, I don't know, can she
Oh no,
make...
that was
no?
very much a
okay.
joke. That was very much a joke.
Then don't show to his mom.
I always go for the joke.
Pay to those who are going to spend money on your game.
Yes. No, but I would also just say though, like yes, find what it is that you want to do and keep it small. I would also say one other really good thing, build it fast. The environment is changing so much, and who knows even like how the market will change even when Steam Frame comes out. So if you've got, especially I'm talking more to like the indie solo devs, if you've got a game that's going to take you more than 6 months, find a way to make it faster or maybe go with something a little bit smaller because you really need to test before you're committing years and years of your life, not knowing where the market's going to be. be
have so many tools today to be able to build really quickly. I think right now is a really good time to rapidly prototype. Yeah.
And also to create some content that's actually going viral, you really have to pay attention to how your players kind of react to your game. So in order for them to have a truly genuine, pleasant, and very intensely kind of reaction, you really have to have high quality game that's going to provide the type of feeling to your users. So those type of reactions are something that you're going to get from playtesting, from showing to other people, and then you can get the feedback and actually improve your game to the point where people actually just truly, absolutely love your game, and that's when you're going to have type of videos that can actually show how fun the game is, and that's going to, go viral. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much. Please give a warm please give it up for our panel. This was a great session, very informative. And thank you so much for being here. And if you have more questions, I'm going to volunteer you guys to take questions on the side.